What's up, guys? Welcome back to more Reddit stories about entitled people, crazy people, and everything in between. Hope you're all doing awesome today, and let's get right into today's Reddit posts. So sue me. Really? This happened several years ago. I was working 40 hours a week programming at my main job, but I did occasional small projects in the evenings and on weekends for other clients. At one point, I was referred to a large company that runs major stadiums and event venues around the country. One of their stadiums is relatively close to where I live. I'll just call them Mark 1 for the story. This manager at Mark 1 said they wanted a simple administration database and user interface for employee timekeeping. Apparently the old system they had was not working for them. I got details of what they wanted and drafted a set of specifications. Told them I could write the system to the specs for $2,000 flat rate. They agreed. I immediately went to work and churned out a database and UI for the system with full documentation in about 2 weeks, so I scheduled an in-person meeting to show them. Now, when I showed up at the meeting, someone representing the security department was there, and he asked about getting some additional features. Sure, I told him, I can do that. So I went back, wrote up a change request, and incorporated the additional features into the platform. I scheduled another meeting with Mark 1 for a couple days later. When I got to that meeting, I noticed the audience had grown. There were 2 extra people from the finance department. Can you add feature X, feature Y, and feature Z? They asked. Sure, no problem. So I left, wrote up a CR, and added the features. A few days later, I met with them again. Imagine my surprise when the audience size had grown, and the new attendees asked for more features. This went on for about 5 more rounds, and I was getting frustrated that I had spec'd out a 2-week project that was now taking months, and I wouldn't be paid until I delivered and they accepted the final product. But I chugged along, implementing all their change requests. But one day, the Mark 1 manager called me. Apparently, she had been speaking with other departments that weren't represented in her status meetings of ever-increasing mass. She gave me a list of dozens of new features they wanted, some of which would require a complete redesign of the core database and an overhaul of the UI. I had had enough. I told her, this is a complete overhaul of the original spec. I'll have to redesign and rebuild this from the ground up. Well, that's not my problem, she responded. Well, actually it is. I'm not going to design and build an entirely new system until you pay me for the current one, built to the specs we agreed on. After a short pause, she dropped a bomb on me. Well, we're not going to renegotiate. You can consider this project canceled. That's not how this works. You still have to pay me for the work I've done. No, I don't. You haven't delivered anything. Sue me. And she hung up. I took Mark 1 manager's advice and went to the courthouse the next day to file in small claims court to recover $2,000 from Mark 1. On my court date a couple of months later, I went down to the courthouse and was greeted by an arbitrator. In my state, they have court-appointed arbitrators meet the litigants when they arrive to see if the parties can sort out the case with an agreement to maximize the judge's time. The arbitrator asked me, "Is there anything you would agree to resolve this immediately?" I thought about it and said, "If they'll pay me 90%, $1,800 right now, I'll drop the suit." He then went into a side room where the Mark 1 manager and the corporate lawyer were hanging out. I heard her screaming that they would either pay it all or pay zero. The arbitrator came to me with the news, and I told him, "I heard, and I'm happy to take it all." He laughed and said no, they want to go to trial. Fast forward a couple of hours. Fast forward is a funny phrase, considering how slow the court moved, but hey, and we're standing in front of the judge. I'm at my table alone, and the Mark 1 manager and lawyer are standing at the opposite table. The judge asked Mark 1 manager to tell her side first. She went into a very long speech about the project and corporate America and apple pie and thermonuclear weapons, and honestly, I have no idea, because I stopped listening about 28 minutes ago. She talked non-stop for at least 30 minutes. Then the judge asked me for my story. Now, I wasn't maliciously ignoring Mark 1 manager's long-winded tale of political intrigue and patriotism. I was actually formulating a strategy. I thought to myself, the judge probably had people who liked to speechify in front of him all day every day. I also thought he might appreciate a short and sweet story that got straight to the point and didn't waste his time. So I said, "Your Honor, they agreed to pay me $2,000 to design and build a software system for them. I completed the work based on the agreed specs, and they decided to cancel the project after I was done. That was it. Then the judge asked me, "How do I know you did the work?" I had printed out the specs, change requests, documentation, and source code the night before. I lifted a ream of paper 500 pages from my table and offered it to the bailiff. "Here's the code I wrote for them, Your Honor." The bailiff came to take it from me and the judge waved him off. "No need, I can see it from here." The judge then asked Mark 1 manager, "Is this true?" She looked like she was in a daze. Yes." Then I fined for the plaintiff in the amount of $2,000. About a month later, Mark 1 still hadn't paid, so I called the county sheriff and explained, sent him the court judgment documents, and he said, "No problem, they'll pay." The sheriff actually called me later that day. He was on a cell phone and I could hear him talking to the Mark 1 manager. He told her to cut a check for $2,000 right now or he was going to, quote, "rip your computers out of the wall and auction them off until the judgment is satisfied." I don't know if he had that authority, but the sheriff seemed to have a grudge against Mark 1, and he was reveling in the opportunity to dog them out. Apparently, Mark 1 believed he had the authority because, long story short, the sheriff had a $2,000 check in his hand about 15 minutes later, and it was in my mailbox about a week later. A lady tries to jump in my car. So I'm a new Uber Eats driver, only been going for about a month. I was just completing an order in the middle part of town. Not too suburbs, but also not too iffy. I live in a major city, so going in and out of varying income level places is normal. As I walked up to my customers, I see there's a man and woman in the doorway, and another woman across from them on the sidewalk. The woman in the doorway is standing timidly behind the guy, and his jaw looks firm. She doesn't break eye contact with me as I walk up, but I tried not to pay it much mind. The guy accepted it, said thanks, and rushed him and his girl into the building. I started to walk back to my car when I noticed the woman from before gently calling for me to stop. She was gently saying, "Hey," and I almost didn't catch it. However, I did notice her trying to keep pace with me on my way to my car. That sent my haunches up, and I did a quick little 1-2 step to get a bit in front of her, jumped into my car without breaking eye contact with her, quickly pushed the lock button on my door, and she still proceeded to try and reach for my passenger side door as if to open it. She heard the door click and stopped on her way to grab it. She bent down to look at me through my window, and her eyes looked far off and bleary. She kept mouthing something, but just like before, her voice was very quiet and I couldn't hear her. I cracked my window just a bit so I could hear her, but not enough that she could get a hand inside. I said, "Sup." I was pretending to be callous and hard, but I am very soft and easily intimidated. I'm not good with confrontation, and in most dangerous situations, I tend to panic. I'm really proud of myself at this point that I was quick enough to think of all these safe solutions. She starts just talking in circles about, "What are you doing? Where are you going? You can't deliver for Uber, you're in high school, etc." Keep in mind that I do have a baby face, but I am 30 years old. I'm polite but curt with her and tell her, "Yes, I am doing deliveries and now I have to go. Did you need something or did you need any help?" She keeps trying to talk in circles, but as I'm about to insist that I'm pulling out, she says, "Hey, let me come with you." I get this weird feeling in the back of my neck, because she looks like what she said was a perfectly sane request, and still did not break eye contact with me. Also keep in mind that this entire time she's been speaking with a very gentle and very quiet voice, as if she was talking to a small scared animal. I say, "No thanks." She insists, saying, "Just trust me, I'm going to go with you, just trust me." Again, at this point, I'm getting more nervous. I say, "No thanks, I'm about to drive off, you should step back so I don't run over your feet." She tries to get closer, maybe thinking that if she doesn't move, I won't move. She is sadly mistaken and I start rolling slowly forward, saying, "You better step back, I'm about to crush your feet." She kept laughing to some unknown joke in her own mind, saying, "You're so funny, you're so funny." I peeled out of there and confusedly looked back in my rearview mirror. I've never come across someone like that before, and I've been in much rougher neighborhoods than this, so I was very confused. I called my husband, who was used to living in the rougher part of my large city, and said that she could have potentially been trying to trap me, so that the other person or car could roll up on my driver's side and potentially jump me or try to steal my car. I'm always glad for his insight. Because of my shelteredness, I have no idea about all of these strategies that people have to get one up on you. This all happened about an hour ago, and I thought sharing this information might help someone out there. Stay safe, y'all. New hire at my boyfriend's job thinks she's going to run things and talk crap about me. Have fun being unemployed. My boyfriend saw this one through, and I'm so glad he did. This chick was hired onto the management team with my boyfriend and has been a problem from the start. As soon as she was hired, she came in trying to change things and run the restaurant, turned the employees against my boyfriend, and started causing issues with the schedule, demanding certain days off and screwing us over, because now he has to work the worst days and she gets all the weekends off. She also talked crap about me for some reason because I apparently had too much cleavage. There was no reason whatsoever for my name to be in her mouth. Like, what the F? Then we have been silently waiting for her to mess up. There was always little things like messing up the employee schedule or getting complaints about her from customers. But she finally did something big enough to report. An employee was irritated with her and venting to my boyfriend about it, and they spilled all the tea about a night where she demanded money from the servers as a, quote, tip for her. She's a salaried manager. She doesn't need tips from employees, and it's probably illegal too. She literally demanded $25 from each of them, and when they gave her that, she said that wasn't enough and asked for $50 each. The ones who didn't give her the other $25 mysteriously got scheduled less the week after. Seriously messed up. Then my boyfriend heard from another manager and from the customers themselves of a huge wedding party that she was extremely unprofessional and difficult to work with. The guests complained about her 4 separate times. So my boyfriend decided to first tell the kitchen manager, the highest under the owner, who then told him to immediately bring it to the owner's attention. The owner compiled a list of dates and employee names. She's getting fired as soon as she gets back from vacation this Wednesday. Alright guys, that's going to be all for today. Thank you for watching, I appreciate it. Make sure to hit that like button if you enjoyed and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. So take care, have an awesome day, and I'll see you next time.